If you and your best friend were being hunted down by an insane clown from hell, what would you do? These girls don't realize it yet, but their absolute worst nightmares are about to come to life. I'm about to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Art the Clown in Terrifier. This clown is about to go on the most brutal rampage imaginable. Down in some abandoned basement, a TV broadcasts an interview where talk show host Monica Brown is speaking with the horribly disfigured sole survivor of the Miles County Massacre, a vicious series of killings that happened on Halloween night the year before. The woman insists that she saw her attacker, a man called Art the Clown, die at the crime scene, but Monica says that his body disappeared from the coroner's office the next morning. That's when Art walks up and kicks the screen, revealing that he's still very much alive. After putting on his signature makeup and costume, he searches around the workshop, filling a trash bag with a bunch of sadistic weapons, and then heads out for another night of terror. Back at the studio, Monica here sits in her dressing room talking on the phone and mocking the woman's injuries, saying how she'd rather die than look like that. Suddenly, the disfigured woman jumps out from behind her and pushes both of her thumbs into her eye socket. Taking her to the ground, she continues horrifically mutilating her face, while the woman is powerless to fight back, kneeling in front of her body and laughing when she's finally had enough. These two girls, Dawn and Tara, are on their way home from a Halloween party and feeling pretty tipsy. Dawn here wants to drive them home, but her friend insists that she's still too drunk and says that she'd rather get some food while they sober up instead. Looking down the street, Tara notices Art and immediately starts getting creeped out. Her friend thinks that it's all a joke and starts taunting him, but when Tara looks back to apologize, Art is already gone. Nervous, she grabs her friend and the two girls walk to a nearby pizza place. While Dawn is ordering them some slices, Tara sits there looking at pictures from the night until her phone dies. That's when Art walks in and takes a seat at the table on the other side of the room. Dawn here doesn't even look up from her phone, but Tara stares directly at him while he gives her a terrifying smile. Noticing that his mouth looks like it's full of blood, Tara says that she wants to go. But when her friend finally catches on that she's nervous because of the clown, she gets the bright idea to prove that he's harmless by walking over to him and asking for a selfie. The whole time Art never takes his eyes off of Tara, but Dawn still takes out her phone to snap a few pictures before coming back to the table and jokingly brushing him off. Art finally gets up and walks over to another table, grabbing a quarter and using it to win a toy out of the prize machine. Opening it up, he finds this little ring with two hearts and brings it over to Tara, grabbing her hand and placing it on her finger before tipping his cap and walking off to the bathroom. Once he's gone, the restaurant owner brings them their slices, saying that he'll take care of the guy if he starts any trouble. Okay, Dawn here might think that Art's just clowning around, but to me, he's obviously showing all the signs of being a stalker, and it might be smart for Tara to trust her instincts on this one. How would you handle this situation? It's Halloween night, and you're out with your best friend getting some pizza. On the way there, you see a man in a creepy clown costume watching you, and 2 minutes after you sit down, he walks in and takes a table across the room. Is he just a normal guy out for a slice, or is it time to start yelling stranger danger? The key to identifying if you're being stalked is to stay aware of your surroundings and notice anyone with unusual behaviors. This could mean seeing the same person in multiple different places, or someone who seems like they're paying too much attention to you, lingering for too long, or going out of their way to force unwanted contact. If enough of these red flags start popping up, then it's best to trust your gut and act fast, getting to a safe public location and contacting the police. The girls here might think that they've got everything under control, but what Art has planned is worse than they could possibly imagine. According to the Stalking Prevention Center, cases usually follow a pattern called SLII, which stands for surveillance, life invasion, intimidation, and interference. The first sign that they had an unwanted follower was when they ran into Art out by their car, and then immediately again at the pizza shop. This falls under the tactic of surveillance, which basically means watching or following someone against their will. The biggest red flag of all, though, was when he grabbed Tara's hand and made her take that toy ring This is a textbook example of life invasion, where the stalker will show up at places that you happen to be, forcefully make contact with you, and sometimes give you unwanted gifts. Another stalking behavior that you need to be aware of is someone watching you too closely. And so far, every time that they've seen Art here, he straight up refuses to take his eyes off of Tara. The final step in the pattern, interference, is when the stalker actively threatens your physical safety, often by assaulting or kidnapping their victim. The first thing that you need to do here is let the stalker know that you're aware of them, but not in a way that's confrontational or suspicious. Some simple, brief eye contact is what you want to aim for, just enough to make it clear that you know they're around. If you're dealing with someone like Art and can't scare the creep away without escalating the situation, try discreetly getting a video or some pictures of the person first using your phone. That way you'll have some evidence to show the police if you end up needing them. Dawn probably doesn't even realize it, but going up to him for a selfie actually could be helpful if this ends up in a police investigation. Before getting into a direct confrontation, the best thing to do is to try to shake your stalker first, which is why the girls here should get up and leave the pizza place without getting their food, and then after a moment turn around and go back in. If Art followed, then they'd know without a doubt that he was stalking them. Once they know for sure that they were in trouble, the next step would be to contact the police and sit there tight in the pizza shop until an officer arrived. When they're ready to go home, the girls should also ask an officer or use one of the workers to walk with them back to the car just in case. They'll want to be careful though, since Art already saw them by their car and could be waiting nearby. Knowing this, the best strategy would be to take another route and approach the car from a different direction. That way they can take a moment to observe things from a safe distance. One last thing to consider is who Art here might actually be under the makeup, and if he has any connection to them. There are generally considered to be 4 main types of stalkers, but the most common and most dangerous by far are known as intimate stalkers, which basically means someone who the victim knows personally from their everyday life. The girls should think of anyone that they know who might do this, or try to remember if they saw Art earlier that night at the Halloween party, since any help that they can give with identifying him will speed up the process for the police. While the girls are finishing up, the owner shoves Art back out of the bathroom, and he is not happy with whatever the clown was up to. Throwing him out of the shop, he grabs his garbage bag and tosses it into his hands, telling him not to come back and asking his worker to get a mop. Art looks in and waves at Tara as he walks away, leaving both girls completely shocked and wondering what the hell happened in there. Back at the car, the girls make a terrifying discovery. While they were getting food, someone came along and slashed one of their tires. Dawn says that her only spare is already on the car, meaning that they're stranded here for now. So Tara borrows her friend's phone to call her sister Vicki for help. While they're waiting for her to show up, Tara keeps looking around nervously outside, scared that Art might have been the one who slashed the tires. Her friend still thinks that he was just some weirdo in a costume, but Tara here can't shake the feeling that they're both still in danger. Meanwhile, back at the pizza shop, this employee is furious because it turns out Art smeared his crap all over the bathroom walls, and now the owner is making him clean it up. Once he's finally done, he comes back out to the front of the store looking for his boss, only to see the man's severed head turned into a jack-o'-lantern and propped up on the counter as Art rises up from the darkness with a huge meat cleaver in his hand. The guy tries to run for his life, but the back door is locked shut. Returning to the kitchen, he reaches for the phone when suddenly Art lunges at him and chops off all of his fingers before walking up and stabbing him in the side of the face with a kitchen knife. Taking him to the ground, he continues the brutal attack, stabbing him over and over again, and only stopping when the man is almost completely unrecognizable. Okay, it looks like pizza isn't the only thing getting sliced around here. This poor guy was just trying to finish his shift, and the next thing that he knew, Art was chopping him up like a stick of pepperoni. He may not have had much warning of what was coming, but at least his reaction time was pretty good. The guy would have made it out of there if the back door wasn't locked, but going for the phone while taking his attention off of the threat is where it all went wrong. Luckily, it looks like Art here only has melee weapons, which means that he'll have to get up close and personal to attack. I would have quickly knocked over the mop bucket in the doorway while holding onto the mop itself to use as a makeshift bow staff by spilling soapy water all over the floor. Hopefully, as Art rushed towards me, it would cause him to slip and fall. Then, all I'd have to do is hurtle over the register and sprint out through the front door while he was trying to pick himself back up. If he couldn't get away quickly enough, then the smartest move would be to use any knives, frying pans, or other kitchen equipment that's laying around to even the odds. Whatever strategy that you choose, it helps that actually defeating Art here isn't completely necessary, since if you were able to stun him for long enough to make it to your car out in the parking lot, then you'd be home free. Unless, of course, he took the time to slash your tires too, which brings us back to Tara and Dawn. Vicki may be on her way, but instead of waiting for the girl to drive however far to come and get them, they could have easily used an app like Uber or Lyft to get home and come back for their car the next morning. They're not exactly out in the middle of nowhere. From the guy at the pizza shop's shirt, we can see that this is all taking place in Deer Park, a neighborhood on Long Island, New York. Both of these apps have been easily accessible in that area since the early 2010s, and Dawn's phone still has a charge, meaning that they could have already been home by now if they just paid up for a ride. After waiting for a while, Tara says that she needs to use the bathroom, and the girls notice a maintenance worker from a building nearby step outside to smoke a cigarette. Dawn jokes that she should go ask him, but Tara actually decides to accept the challenge and face her fears, getting out of the car and walking over. After some convincing, he finally agrees to let her in, and Tara follows him into the building, leaving her friend behind in the car. The place is completely run down and empty, and the man explains that he was just about to gas the whole place for rats. Showing her to the bathroom, he takes a look inside and promises that it's safe, asking Tara if she needs him to wait and show her the way back out. She thanks him, but she says that she'll be okay. So the guy leaves to get back to his work while she mentally prepares herself to use the disgusting toilet. Out in the car, Dawn listens to the radio while taking some more selfies in her costume as a news report comes on about a double homicide in the area. The killings happened at the same place where they had just been eating, and the only witness said that they spotted someone dressed in a black and white clown costume and carrying a garbage bag fleeing the scene. Looking through her phone, she realizes that they're describing the same man that she was just taking pictures with. Suddenly, the passenger door opens, and she thinks that it must be Tara, but when she looks over, she sees none other than Art the Clown smiling back at her with a big, bloody grin. Okay, maybe Tara wasn't acting too paranoid after all. Dawn here is probably regretting not taking the situation more seriously right about now, but she has no idea just how horrific things are about to get. When you're stranded in an isolated part of the neighborhood with confirmed reports of a serial killer on the loose, the worst thing that you could possibly do is sit there with your head buried in your phone and the doors wide open for anyone who wants to hop inside, especially when you know for a fact that the killer has been watching you and your friend all night. And that's why the most obvious way for her to prevent something like this from happening would have been to keep the car doors locked and her eyes open until her friend got back. If she'd at least had the common sense to lock up the car, she would have at least had a warning when Art pulled on the handle and the opportunity to slam on the horn and attract attention, quickly call the police with her phone and let them know what was going on, or throw the car into gear and drive away to safety on the blown out tire. Even if she couldn't get anywhere and the clown didn't immediately take off when she started causing a scene, the doors being locked would have brought her some very valuable extra time to come up with a strategy to fight back. A psychotic clown climbing into the passenger seat is pretty much the absolute worst case scenario, but instead of staring at him and screaming helplessly, I would have either tried to quickly open my door, slip out of the car and run for my life, or lunged for the hand that was holding his weapon and fought with all of my strength to disarm him while causing as much of a commotion as I possibly could to attract the attention of anyone who might be nearby. Art here may be terrifying, but as far as we can tell right now, he's only human, meaning that he's just as vulnerable to a counterattack as anyone else. So fighting like your life depends on it is exactly what you need to do. If Dawn could have injured him enough to get out of the car, the smartest place to run would have been right back to the pizza shop, since it's within walking distance and the police were already on the scene. Then at least she would have been safe, and she could tell the authorities what happened and where to find her friend before he went after her next. Tara starts walking back to the exit, but stops when she hears cats crying out from somewhere in the shadows. She goes to check it out and accidentally bumps into this crazy lady holding a baby doll and treating it as if it's her actual child. The woman thinks that she must be a new tenant in the building, so Tara decides to play along, excusing herself and saying that she needs to go find the landlord before quickly getting out of there. She finally finds her way back, but standing there blocking the only way out is Art the Clown, covered in blood and holding a scalpel in his hand. The two of them stare at each other until Art lunges towards her, Tara quickly turning around and slamming the door in his face, but tripping and crashing to the ground. On her way down the steps, picking herself up, she bursts through a gate into an area that's full of old cars and hides behind one of them as she watches Art come in and start searching for her around the room. She ducks out of sight as he makes his way from car to car, looking inside and getting closer with every step. Suddenly, he turns and looks right in her direction, and she drops to the floor looking under the cars at his feet and waiting to see what he'll do next. Dragging his knife across the window, he stops for a moment before mysteriously walking away, and once he's out of sight, Tara decides to make her move. Making her way to the end of the row of cars, she looks around trying to find an exit, but just when she's about to run, she screams out in pain as Art crawls up behind her and stabs her through the ankle. He keeps slashing at her until she finally slaps him across the face, knocking the knife out of his hand. Desperate to escape, she tries her best to crawl away, but he quickly catches up and starts choking her there on the ground. Just when it looks like she's about to be killed, she manages to find Art's knife lying nearby and stabs him in the arm, creating another chance to get away. Tara runs for the nearest door, but can't get through, so she doubles back and hides behind some cover, grabbing a metal club to protect herself. Sure enough, Art shows up again, almost finding her until she throws a small piece of metal across the room and distracts him. As he walks away, she finally has a chance to catch her breath, checking out her mangled leg and trying to keep herself quiet while she figures out what to do next. Once she thinks that the coast is clear, Tara here runs back the way that she came in, but realizes that the door has been chained and padlocked shut. She makes her way to this abandoned office and tries to use the phone, but there's no power. Just then, she notices the maintenance guy working at the end of the hallway. She yells out for him to help, but the man has headphones in, and no matter what she tries, she can't get his attention. Screaming as loud as she can, she tries one last time, and suddenly, Art jumps up from behind her, covering her mouth and pulling her out of sight just as the maintenance guy turns to look. Around the corner, Art pushes a needle into her neck, injecting her with sedatives, and in an instant, Tara falls asleep. When she finally wakes up, she realizes that she's been duct taped to a chair in this creepy basement with a big sheet hanging from the ceiling across the room. Looking around, she sees Art there crouched down to the floor and picking out a weapon from his pile of tools. The clown grabs a small hatchet and comes over to the chair, taunting her by pretending to hit her, only to stop and act like it's all a joke. Walking back over to his bag of tools, he picks up a hacksaw and grabs the back of Tara's head, holding it up to her neck. But somehow, what he really has planned is even worse. Letting her go, he walks across to the other side of the room and pulls down the curtain, revealing Dawn hanging there upside down from the ceiling. Horrified, both girls scream as loud as they can, but there's no way for them to escape, and Tara can only watch as Art saws her friend in half right in front of her. Okay, this is the absolute worst case scenario. If Art here kept Tara alive just to make her watch that horrific scene, then you can only imagine how sadistic whatever he's planning to do with her must be. She needs to get out of there as soon as physically possible, and luckily there's a proven strategy that can help her break free from those restraints. Art has her ankles bound and wrists strapped to this old wooden chair with a layer of duct tape. Although it's very strong, if you apply enough force in the right directions, the tape can be easily torn off. What you want to do here is pull your elbows towards your rib cage before flinging them back out and using a burst of strength to move your arms in an upward motion, as if you were trying to punch yourself in the chest. The quick shifting motion will tear the tape along its weakest point, and just like that, you'll be back in action. If all else fails, then she could always try throwing her body weight backwards and tipping over, hopefully breaking the chair itself in the fall. Using all of her strength, Tara finally breaks an arm of the chair and sets herself free just in time to punch Art across the face. Grabbing a knife, she stabs him in the back and runs past her friend's body into this abandoned garage. Tara arms herself with a wooden board, crouching behind a car and waiting to ambush Art when he comes looking for her. As soon as his back is turned, she sneaks up behind him and clubs him in the side of the head. The hit causes him to drop his knife, and she quickly bashes him a few more times, stunning him and sending him flying to the ground with one final swing. Standing back, she challenges Art to get up, letting him get to his knees before going in for the kill. But suddenly Art pulls out a pistol and shoots her once in the leg. Tara collapses to the ground, screaming in pain as Art walks over and kicks her weapon away. With a blank look on his face, he shoots her again in the side before standing over her and firing a shot directly at her head. Somehow, Tara is still alive, the shot having missed and gone straight through her cheek, and Art realizes that he's out of ammunition. Frustrated, he walks back to his workshop, leaving the girl behind. Searching through his bag, he finds another magazine and is about to go and finish the job when he hears Dawn's cell phone ring. Vicki here finally makes it to the girl's car, but realizes that her sister and her friend are nowhere in sight. She goes to the front door of the building, but it's chained shut from the other side. And when she tries to call her sister's friend, the girl doesn't answer. After a moment, Art texts her from the girl's phone, saying that her sister is sick and to meet them around the back. Down in the basement, Art walks over to Dawn's body and takes a selfie before making his way back to Tara. Standing over her, he immediately aims his pistol and pulls the trigger, killing her for real this time. Okay, talk about choking within inches of the finish line. I think that's as close as I've ever seen someone get to making it out alive before blowing it at the bitter end. It almost feels bad to say this, but Tara, you just f***ed up. From the minute that we saw this clown, your gut instincts were right on the money. It's not fair to immediately think that every creepy guy you see on Halloween night is a serial killer out looking for their next victim, but sometimes you have to know when to trust that little voice in the back of your head. If you'd just asked the employees at the pizza shop for help or made a call to the police before things went too far, then you would have never ended up in this situation. But instead, you decided to split up from your friend and go wandering around in an abandoned building without your phone to call for help or anyone else to watch your back. And sure enough, that guy that you had a bad feeling about showed up to drag you both down to his torture chamber. By the time that you actually managed to break free, it was already too late for your friend. But despite all the odds, you actually managed to find yourself a weapon and win the battle. So tell me why, when you had Art as good as dead, you thought it would be a smart idea to give him a chance to get back up. There's a time and a place for acting like a badass, but girl, this was not it. One more good hit was all that you needed to put him in the dirt and live to tell the tale. And after seeing what Art was capable of firsthand, anybody with common sense would have kept beating him with that club while he was on the ground and not stopped until the body stopped moving. Giving him the opportunity to pull another sneaky trick on you was just as bad as signing your own death warrant. And now your sister, who drove all this way to get your drunk ass home, has no idea that she's walking right into this psycho's trap. When you managed to take the bad guy down, only to get shot for not finishing the job while you had the chance, Tara, you f***ed up. Furious that she caused him so much trouble, Art fires at her body until he empties the clip. And when he looks up, he realizes that the crazy cat lady witnessed the whole thing. He smiles and waves right at her, and she turns and runs away horrified. The woman runs into the janitor and tries to explain what's been going on, but she comes off as so insane that the guy doesn't believe a word she's saying. She warns him that Art is going to kill them both, but he shoves her off and walks away, and that's when she remembers her baby doll is still in the basement. When the man goes to check things out, he hears Vicki yelling for help from somewhere downstairs, and as he pulls out his phone to call his boss, Art sneaks up the staircase from behind him, tapping him on the shoulder and hitting him on the head with a hammer as soon as he turns around, before smashing his phone to pieces. The cat lady makes it back to her room, but can't find the baby doll anywhere. Realizing that Art must have her, she gets up and stumbles out to find them. Walking down this tunnel, she eventually sees Art sitting on the floor, holding the doll just a few feet ahead. The woman slowly approaches, trying to connect with him emotionally and convince him not to hurt her baby. Reaching out, she touches the side of his head lovingly, and he pretends to like it, leaning in for a hug. Meanwhile, Vicki makes it to the garage and continues looking around for any sign of her sister. Not sure where else to look, she calls Dawn's phone again and hears it ringing from somewhere in the basement nearby. Following the sound, she cautiously climbs down and looks into the workshop, where she sees the girl's mutilated body hanging from the ceiling. Horrified, Vicki runs back out of the room, only to hear a woman screaming from down another set of stairs. Thinking that it must be Tara, she nervously goes to investigate and finds a woman's body laying there on the floor. Vicki immediately goes to see if she's alright, but when she looks over to the other side of the room, she sees the cat lady horribly injured and about to die. Suddenly, Art pops up from the floor next to her. The girl screams and tries to get up as he reaches for her, luckily managing to slip out of her hoodie and get away for now. Running into an upstairs office, she sees Art coming after her, wearing the hair and skin of the cat lady. She tries escaping through a window, but can't get it open far enough, so she screams for help before hiding in an empty locker. Art walks into the room moments later, putting on a big show as if he doesn't know where she is, only to point straight at the locker and smile. Watching through a tiny hole in the door, Vicki sees the clown walk out of sight before popping up again just a few inches away. He starts violently shaking the locker, but at the last minute turns and walks away when he hears a car horn going off outside. While all of this was going on, another maintenance guy showed up to work and realized that he was locked out. He tried calling the other exterminator, Mike, to let him in, just as he was about to leave. The guy remembered that they hid a spare key under the doormat and got inside. As soon as he walks into the building, he notices that Mike isn't around and sees bloody footprints all across the floor. Following them, he accidentally steps on the cat lady's baby doll, and while he's distracted, Art appears behind him, stabbing him through the brain to hold him still and slicing his neck open with a machete before pulling his whole head right off of his body. He punched the guy's head across the room like a kickball and goes back to hunting down Vicki. Vicki tries to sneak away, only to run directly into Art, riding around on a tiny bike. He circles around the room before riding off into the shadows, and she starts working her way towards an exit while trying her best to avoid him. Eventually, she makes it into a room full of gasoline cans and rats coming out of every hole in the wall, stopping for a minute to think about where to go next. Art jumps out from behind her and covers her face with a sheet of plastic, but thinking quickly, the girl reaches up and rips open the plastic with her hands, setting herself free. Art closes in again, and this time she grabs a giant nail, holding it above her head and slamming it down as hard as she can into his foot. With the clown temporarily stunned, she gets up and runs down the tunnel, Art giving her the finger as she goes. Okay, Vicki might have managed to get away, but she actually missed an important opportunity to give herself an advantage in the battle. In the last area that she went through, she noticed a bunch of gas cans stacked up in the corner. With a little quick thinking, it might have been possible to use the flammable liquid, some cloth from her shirt, a stick from the ground, and a spark to create a makeshift torch and use it against him. The hardest part would have been actually getting the thing lit, but if she was paying close enough attention, she would have noticed that the cat lady left a bunch of candles burning back in her little room. This means that if she was able to circle back in that direction without being spotted, she could use the flames to light the torch, and then she'd have a pretty strong weapon to use to protect herself while she worked her way back out of the building. Not only would this be a huge help in the fight, she could even use it to set a trap, spreading some of the gasoline on the ground in a confined area and luring Art into it before lighting the puddle on fire and burning him alive. Circling back to the garage, Vicki is horrified to find Tara's body propped up in a chair with string lights and a board painted with the word circus. While she stands there mourning her dead sister, Art walks up behind her, holding an improvised cat-o'-nine-tails whip and starts slashing her with it over and over. But just then, Mike hits the clown hard over the back of the head, knocking him unconscious and rushing her to safety. The two of them make it to an employees-only maintenance room and he locks them in. Realizing that there's a phone in the room, he goes to call the police and tells them everything that's happened. The dispatcher informs them that they're sending officers right away, but Mike explains that they can't wait around since Art will kill them if he comes back. and says that he's going to take Vicki to the emergency room in his truck. Running to the back door, they realize that this one is chained shut too, and while Mike searches around for something to break it open, Art sneak attacks him from around the corner, knocking him down with a heavy piece of equipment and stomping on his head until it explodes. Vicki finds a metal pipe and starts trying to bash the lock open, with Art slowly closing in. Finally, she manages to break through, but it's too late, and Art grabs her from behind. Reaching back, she stabs him in the eye with her thumb, giving her an opening to run. Limping through the building, she makes it to another chained door, but manages to get it open just enough to squeeze through. While she's catching her breath, Art reaches in behind her and grabs her by the hair, and she throws her body weight forward, slipping out of his grip. The clown starts taunting her with a bike horn, but when she goes to hit him with the metal pipe, it seems like he disappeared. Hearing police sirens on their way, Vicki thinks that it's finally over and limps back to the door, but that's when Art starts up the exterminator's truck and floors it, blasting through the doorway and running her over. As she lays on the ground bleeding, he crouches over her body and starts eating the side of her face. Okay, I guess blowing it at the last minute must run in the family tree. All that you had to do was survive for another 2 minutes and you would have been home free. But instead, you got your hopes up just a moment too early, and Art almost wiped out your entire bloodline. With the police right down the street, she should have stayed put at the back of the garage, ready to defend herself until she physically saw some help there on the scene. She might have been worried that they wouldn't notice her hiding there, but if I were in this situation, I would have started screaming as loud as I could for help while holding up in a position that I knew was safe. Once she saw the truck coming, she should have dove to the left or right side instead of running straight in the direction that it was moving, since the thing obviously had enough momentum to blast right through that door and run her down. If she'd gotten out of the way in time, then her exit would have been wide open, and she could have rushed out onto the street and straight to the police. Just then, 2 police officers corner him with their guns drawn and tell him to put his hands up. Realizing that it's the end of the line, Art spins around to face them and takes himself out with his own gun. As the officers investigate the scene, they realize that although she's been torn to shreds, Vicki is still alive. At the morgue, the EMTs bring in 2 of the bodies and tell the coroner that there are 2 more on the way, explaining the whole situation. Once they're gone, he opens up the first bag, looking over Mike's disfigured corpse. Moving on to the next one, he pulls the zipper open on Art, but jumps back when he sees the body staring directly at him and smiling. Just then, all of the lights flicker and the phone starts to ring, but after a moment, everything stops. As he turns around to get back to work, Art reaches up and grabs the man by the throat, revealing that he isn't dead after all. 1 year later, Vicki is being released from a psychiatric hospital. The doctor wishes her luck at an interview that night, and when the camera shows her disfigured face, it's revealed that she was the woman who attacked the talk show host at the very beginning. She might think that the clown is dead, but the truth is that Art's reign of terror is only just getting started. If you were being hunted by a demonic killer clown, what would you do? It's been a year since his last performance, and now this maniac mime is back to put on another gruesome show. I'm here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the return of Art the Clown in Terrifier 2. These teenagers are about to have a Halloween night that they'll never forget. After a brutal rampage that ended with his death, Art the Clown mysteriously comes back to life at the town morgue and immediately begins attacking the coroner. The man crawls to his phone, trying to call the police for help, but he's too hurt to speak. And meanwhile, Art writes his name in blood on the mirror before picking up a tiny hammer and horrifically beating him with it, even stealing one of his eyeballs and messing with his brains. When he's finally done, he gathers a bunch of supplies into a black trash bag and goes off to meet his next unfortunate victim, stopping in at a laundromat to wash his bloody costume. Art sits down reading the newspaper when suddenly he notices this creepy clown girl watching him from a seat nearby. They quickly become best friends, and while they're playing patty cake, this poor guy wakes up from the noise. But it turns out that only Art can see her. With his clothes cleaned, he grabs his things and walks out of the store, leaving the man in his seat with a broken mop handle jammed through the top of his head. Okay, Art here wastes no time getting down to business, does he? He just came back from the grave and proceeded to kill 2 people all while doing his laundry. That's some serious multitasking right there. The coroner here never saw it coming, so we'll chalk that one up to bad luck. But when it comes to our guy in the laundromat, talk about a lack of survival skills. We didn't get to see their fight, but when Art leaves the shop, the guy is still sitting in the same spot that he was when he first walked in, meaning that he never even made it out of his seat before getting spiked through the brain. Next time that you're doing your laundry in the middle of the night and notice while you were dozed off, a naked, blood-covered clown walked in and started playing patty cake with his invisible friend, it might be time to skedaddle on out of there before it's too late. That's why if it were me, I would have casually gotten up and excused myself out of the shop before sprinting down the street like I was about to break the land speed record. Based on how loose his shoes are, it doesn't look like he'll have a very easy time chasing you down. So if you acted quickly enough, then you should be home free. 1 year later, this girl Sienna is having dinner with her family, and her younger brother Jonathan says that he's planning to go out dressed as the killer clown for Halloween. Sienna here thinks that it's too messed up, and later on while they're doing the dishes, she mentions that she sometimes worries about the kid's obsession with violence and horror, but her mom insists that it's just a phase. That night, Sienna's laying in bed flipping through the channels when she lands on a bizarre commercial for a food truck called the Clown Cafe and dozes off. Suddenly, she wakes up only to realize that she's there in the middle of the music video set and can tell right away that something is horribly wrong. On the next set over, she sees a kid eating a bowl of Art-branded cereal that's full of razor blades and broken glass, and apparently comes with a hidden surprise in every box. That's when the banjo-playing host announces that they have a special guest, and Art himself appears from inside of the truck, smiling and waving at all of his fans. Sienna here is extremely scared, but she has no idea how insane things are about to get. Reaching into his bag, Art pulls out a box wrapped in newspaper and starts shoving it in her face, and inside, she finds someone's beating heart. Suddenly, the clown takes out a Tommy gun and starts blasting everyone who's watching, hitting Sienna in the leg and leaving her one of the only survivors of the attack. Now armed with a blowtorch, he starts lighting whoever's left on fire, while Sienna crawls to the other set and jams her hand into the cereal box as Art slowly walks towards her, pulling out a sword just in time to block the flames. She wakes up in bed and quickly sees that it wasn't all a dream, and her entire house is about to be burnt down. Luckily, her mom is able to put out the flames with a fire extinguisher, but her Halloween costume is completely destroyed, leaving only the sword that her father gave her before he passed away untouched. Okay, Sienna might have made it out alive, but it was really only by dumb luck. Instead of hoping to find a magical sword at the bottom of a cereal box, there's actually a much more effective way that she could have handled the situation. Based on the fact that she was dozing off right before ending up here and the insanity of everything that's going on, it should have been pretty obvious that this was all happening in a dream, and if she wanted to escape, all that she needed to do was figure out a way to quickly wake herself up and get back to the safety of the real world. Have you ever had a nightmare so intense that you were sure it was real? Well, that's exactly what's happening to Sienna here, but the difference is that this dream could have deadly consequences. In medical terms, the word nightmare describes threatening dreams that occur most often during REM sleep. They can have physical causes, like suffering from a fever, snacking too late before bed, and the side effect of certain medications, or can be triggered by something psychological, like stress, depression, anxiety, and PTSD. We all know that nightmares can't really hurt you, but if you find yourself stuck in one like Sienna, here's a trick to wake yourself up. First, you'll need to do a reality check by observing your surroundings for any details that don't make sense. After that, try blinking or reading anything nearby, since this will activate a part of your brain that's normally turned off during REM sleep, hopefully snapping you back to reality. Keep this strategy in mind in case a dream-invading killer clown ever decides to make you his next target. For Sienna here, just taking a quick look around should have made it clear that she was in a dream right away. There's no way that this is taking place in reality, so all that's left to do is to trick her brain into waking up. Receiving a gift from Art the Clown is definitely horrifying, but if she was paying close enough attention, she could have caught on to an extremely important detail. The box that Art gave her came gift-wrapped in a bundle of old newspaper, and that right there could be her ticket out of this nightmare. When stuck in a bad dream, the quickest way to wake yourself up is to try reading something, which is why instead of worrying about what's on that box, I would have immediately started catching up on the daily news. If what I was reading didn't make any sense, then it would trigger my brain to realize that I was in a nightmare, and with any luck, I'd wake up right back in the safety of my own bed. Getting out of there without a fight would always be the smartest choice, but let's say that you wanted to go on the offense instead. Believe it or not, there actually is an opportunity to turn the tables on Art here if you think quickly enough. Once he pulled out that Tommy gun, the whole set immediately went into chaos. And if Sienna had made a move quickly enough, she could have slid down the back of the jungle gym before catching a bullet in the leg and used the actors as meat shields, while she slipped out of sight and found cover on one of the other sets. Then, while Art was searching for her, she could have carefully snuck back over to his bag and grabbed something out of it to fight back with. Once she woke up and realized that the fire somehow made it out of her dream and nearly burned down her house, Sienna should have tried her best to explain to her mom exactly what happened. Sure, her mom's probably going to think she's crazy for now, but as more insane things start going on, eventually she'll have to admit that Sienna might be telling the truth. There's strength in numbers, so it's much better to try and bring her up to speed now than trying to keep it all a secret because you're worried that no one will believe you. The next morning, Sienna notices her brother eating his clown-themed cereal, and it gives her a flashback to her horrible dream from the night before. That day at school, Jonathan sees some kids messing with a dead possum and tells them to cut it out, but the teacher catches them all together and sends them back to class. While getting a drink from the water fountain, he sees the creepy girl skipping down the hallway and goes to check it out, where he finds the two clowns eating the dead creature's intestines. Art throws the animal right at his chest. Horrified, Jonathan sprints away down the hall right into a teacher, pushing past her and running straight out of the building. Okay, this was another moment when Jonathan here really should have explained to somebody what he saw. His own family already thinks that he could be a future serial killer based on his hobbies, so getting caught with a dead animal at school is only going to make matters worse. Of course, nobody is going to believe him when he says that two killer clowns threw the thing into his hand, but they're going to blame him for what happened either way, so it couldn't hurt to try. If he told someone quickly enough, like that teacher that he crashed into in the hallway, then someone might have actually seen Art leaving the school property, proving that he was telling the truth all along. Just running away is only going to make everyone believe that he's guilty, and possibly even get him blamed for future attacks that might happen. That's why if it were me, I would have told the first teacher I ran into exactly what I saw, and hoped that there'd be some evidence to prove that I was actually telling the truth. Later that day, Sienna and Allie stop by a Halloween store to get her a new pair of wings for her costume, and while Allie is on the phone with her mom, she bumps directly into Art the Clown. Thinking that it's just some guy in a costume, Allie walks out, leaving Sienna alone in the shop, who turns around only to see Art watching her from across the room. He's blocking the only exit, so Sienna quickly shuffles past him and hurries upstairs to the register. As she goes to pay for her things, she notices that she's missing her bag, and that's when Art slams it down on the counter before walking over to try on some sunglasses and continue tormenting her from across the room. Eventually, the cashier goes to get her a bigger bag, and while he's gone, Art creeps up next to Sienna and starts honking a toy horn directly in her face. Taking her things, she gets the hell out of there as soon as she can, with Art following close behind, and instead of going after her, he flips the sign closed and locks up the door. Heading back to the register, Art goes to pay for the horn and starts covering the counter with weapons from his bag. The cashier gets tired of his shenanigans and tells him to just get out of the store before he calls the police. But suddenly, Art smashes him on the side of the head with an empty beer bottle and pulls him over the counter. Grabbing the top half of the broken bottle, he lifts the man up and jams it into his eyeball before taking his cleaver and brutally chopping off his head. Okay, I don't know what they were paying this poor guy, but it definitely wasn't enough to deal with this. I'm sure that he's seen some weird customers come and go, but when Art started loading murder weapons onto the counter, that would have been the moment to take immediate action. Since Art only seems to have hand-to-hand weapons, the best strategy for survival would be to create some distance and get ready to fend him off if he attacked. Instead of standing there and confronting him, I would have quickly snatched one of the weapons and backed away from the counter while grabbing the phone to call the police. once the police were on the line, even if you didn't have the chance to tell them any information. It would only be a matter of time before they came to check on the call. The fact that he's an employee actually works heavily to his advantage, since he'll know the layout of the store better than everyone else. Using this knowledge, he could maneuver around evading Art and either keep avoiding him until the police got there, circle around and slip out through the front door, or retreat to an employee's only area where he could hopefully lock himself down until help arrived. It would have been a terrifying fight for survival, but if he kept calm and made good use of the advantages that he had, he might have turned the tables on Art here. If there's one type of person I wouldn't mess with, it's an overworked cashier, because you know that they're already on the verge of snapping and just waiting for a chance to let out that pent-up rage. Back at the house, Jonathan reveals that he's been secretly holding on to their father's journal and shows Sienna torn-out newspaper articles from the massacre last year, telling her that he saw this young girl and the clown together earlier that day at school. On the last page is a sketch of a woman dressed in a costume that looks just like Sienna's, holding up her sword and the severed head of a demon. And Jonathan thinks that this must mean that she's connected too. Sienna still doesn't believe that it's real, but Jonathan here is totally convinced and asks her to please stay home tonight instead of going to the Halloween party, warning her not to be surprised when people start getting killed. Well, that makes things simple. It's not every day you get a whole prophecy explaining exactly what you need to do. Art's the demon, she's the girl, and now she just has to take the sword her dad gave her and cut his head off. Easy peasy. As a matter of fact, I'd also take a minute to search through the rest of their dad's old stuff, because he seems to know a lot about what's going on here, and there might be more information hidden away somewhere that could give us an advantage in the fight. Luring Art in for the kill is going to be the most difficult part, which is why I'd want to use Jonathan here as bait. Since it's Halloween night, the easiest thing to do would be to have him just go around town trick-or-treating all alone, and watch him from a short distance away until the clown decided to show up. Then all that's left to do is jump him with that short sword, chop his head off, and find a wood chipper to throw him in. That way you know for sure that he won't be coming back. If that was too risky, then there is one more plan that they could try. The first time that Art attacked Sienna was in a dream, so it's possible that if she falls back to sleep, she'll run into him again, but this time she'll be ready. With her brother standing by her to wake her up if things go horribly wrong, Sienna here should try falling asleep and using lucid dreaming to bring the sword with her, where she can fight it out with Art in her mind instead of here in reality. Allie here gets her first group of trick-or-treaters for the night, and while she's giving them their candy, she spots a sketchy-looking van parked across the street, never noticing that the pale girl is watching her from inside. As soon as she closes the door, she gets another customer, but this time, it's Art the clown. Allie tells him that he's super creepy and says that she's not giving him any candy since he's too old, but that was her biggest mistake. She closes the door and starts to walk away, but immediately starts pounding on the other side, shoving the garbage bag in her face and refusing to leave until she gives him some candy. When she finally tosses some in, she notices that the bag is full of bloody weapons and quickly locks the door without saying another word, watching him as he walks away down the street. Allie tries to call Sienna, but she gets distracted by a news report about last year's attacks. Just then, she hallucinates the reporter saying her name and starts to have a panic attack. So she goes to her room and takes some medication before laying down in bed. Looking around her room, she gets inspired to conquer her fears and put her costume back together. Meanwhile, Allie's putting on her makeup while she hears glass break from somewhere in her house and decides to go check it out. Downstairs, she sees that someone's broken in through the back door, and suddenly Art strolls into her kitchen and pours himself a glass of water before grabbing some weapons and chasing her back up to her bedroom. She tries to escape out of the window, but Art grabs her and slashes her through the eye, taking the scissors and brutally cutting off her scalp. Throwing her onto the bed, he slashes open her back, tears one of her arms off at the elbow, and rips the other one in half from the fingers down. The clown skips out of the room, leaving Allie behind, somehow still alive. She drags herself across the floor towards her phone, but before she can reach it, Art returns with a bottle of bleach and some salt, pouring the bottle over her and literally rubbing the salt into her wounds, before tearing off a chunk of skin from the side of her face. Allie's mom returns home and is about to go upstairs when she hears the sound of running water and notices that someone's broken in. Horrified, she runs up to the bedroom only to find Art sitting on the bed playing with her daughter's mutilated corpse. Sienna goes back to the Halloween party with her friend Brooke, and the girls order some shots from the bar. She's worried that they haven't heard from Allie, but her friend insists that she puts her phone away and focuses on having fun for the night. Meanwhile, Jonathan tries to show his mom the evidence from his dad's notebook, but she flips out and tears up the pages, slapping him hard across the face, and he takes off running out of the house. Frustrated, she goes to the kitchen and pours herself a glass of wine, and that's when she hears a noise from out in the garage. Checking it out, only to realize that her car is completely trashed. Outside, Jonathan notices the black van parked across the street and goes to check it out. At first, it seems like no one's inside, but when he looks back, he sees the creepy girl watching him from the passenger seat and decides to run for his life. Back at the party, Brooke reveals that she put a small dose of MDMA in Sienna's drink without her knowing, which explains why she's feeling so messed up. She doesn't have much time to be mad though, because she notices that her mom had been calling her the whole time that they were out on the dance floor. And when she calls back, the woman is completely freaking out about her car. Sienna finally manages to calm her down, and they say that they love each other before hanging up. Her mom starts cleaning the car, but when she wipes off the window, she sees Art smiling there in the driver's seat, as he quickly pulls out a tiny double-barreled shotgun, blowing her head into pieces. While they're out on the dance floor, Sienna notices the pale girl watching her from across the party and starts to have a panic attack, thinking that it must be a side effect of the drugs. Her friends decide that they need to take her home. Running back to the house, Jonathan walks in only to find his mother's headless body propped up at the kitchen table. And suddenly Art appears and starts jamming mashed potatoes into the hole where her face used to be. He tries to run upstairs and go for the sword, but Art chases him down and sticks a giant syringe full of strange liquid into his neck. As they're driving home, Sienna gets a call from her brother begging her for help, but it's really the pale girl on the other end imitating his voice. She tells her to meet him at the old carnival grounds, and since they're only a few miles away, Sienna's friends agree to take her there. They pull into the abandoned parking lot, but her brother is nowhere in sight, so Sienna decides to go looking for him alone while the other two wait in the car. She tries calling him again and finally gets through, but the signal is too weak to hear what he's saying, so she texts him instead and says that he's stuck in the haunted house attraction called the Terrifier. Back at the door, Brooke's boyfriend gets out to pee while she tries to call Sienna, but her friend doesn't answer. Suddenly, Art crawls up and stabs the guy right between his legs, slicing off his sausage and holding it up to the window. Brooke desperately tries to start the car, but can't do it fast enough, and Art bursts through the glass, dragging her into the parking lot and coming after her with a huge knife. She kicks him off just in time and runs for her life, leaving her boyfriend for dead, but she's not about to get away so easily. Okay, I think we all saw that one coming. The moment that these two decided to stay back in the car, it was already over for them. And that's why if I were Sienna, I would have insisted that they follow me into the carnival and help me look for my brother instead. Not only would 3 people be able to search more effectively, but this way, I'd have 2 meat shields on deck for when Art inevitably showed up and started slashing. Going it alone is just asking for trouble, especially when you've had a couple of drinks and are somewhere unfamiliar. When it comes to Brooke and her man here, as 2 teenagers making out in their car alone in a dark empty parking lot on Halloween night, as soon as I heard trouble out back, I would have immediately dialed 911, thrown that car into gear, and floored it. When you see a mime holding a kitchen knife and covered in blood through the back window, that is not the time to freeze up and start getting butterfingers like Brooke here. Brooke limps through the carnival, calling out for Sienna, with Art following right behind her carrying his bag of tricks. Eventually, she makes it to this creepy-looking tunnel, and Sienna can finally hear her screaming, so she runs to try and find her friend before it's too late. Running through the haunted house, Brooke stumbles into a blood-covered bathroom and realizes that it's a dead end. Art slowly walks around the corner with a sinister-looking club and a smile on his face, so she grabs a block of wood from the sink and tells him to stay back. But Art distracts her with his weapon, only to toss some acid in her face from behind his back. blinding her and ruining any chance of her being able to fight. As she screams in pain, he bashes her across the back with his club, knocking her to the floor and caving in her chest before reaching into the hole, pulling out her heart and taking a bite. By the time Sienna finally makes it, it's already much too late, and she finds her friend lying on the bathroom floor in a pool of her own blood. Art stands there smiling and starts slowly walking towards her, but that's when they notice Jonathan watching from the doorway, and while the clown's distracted, Sienna grabs a board with a nail sticking out of it and stabs him in the back of the leg, buying her brother an opportunity to escape. Furious, Art reaches down and slams her into the mirror, stomping on her head and leaving her unconscious while he goes after Jonathan instead. Waking up a few moments later, she notices that her phone is completely smashed and grabs Art's club, ready to get back in the fight. Seeing Art coming, Jonathan hides in a crate and waits for him to pass. When he thinks the coast is clear, he starts to run for the exit, but suddenly Art cuts him off and slashes him several times with a surgical knife. Sneaking up from behind, Sienna strikes him in the back, dropping him to his knees and jamming the club into the back of his head. Grabbing her brother, the two of them run for their lives, but Art isn't finished with them just yet. Arming herself with a metal pipe, Sienna and her brother eventually find themselves in a creepy church full of zombie figures. She tells her brother to wait while she checks things out up ahead. But while she's gone, Art rises up from the bench behind him and starts beating him with an improvised cat-o'-nine-tails whip. Sienna rushes in and clobbers Art across the face several times, and he fires back with the whip, injuring her and throwing her over the altar before going back after Jonathan, trying to save her brother's life. She crawls over to him and uses her body to shield him from the blows, the clown mercilessly whipping her over and over. Finally, she manages to catch the weapon, pushing him away and turning it on him until the pointy end breaks off in his face. Throwing it down, she pulls a metal spike from a nearby fence and jams it through the top of his skull. Okay, that was a close call. Sienna here is lucky that Art didn't outright kill her when he had the chance, but she can't rely on luck forever. Sienna missed an important opportunity to call for help back there in the bathroom. She might not have wanted to get the cops involved at first, since she was technically drunk underage and her brother was trespassing, but now they know for sure that Art is after them and this is a life or death situation. Her phone screen may be cracked, but that doesn't mean that it's completely useless. As long as it still works, holding the lock button and one of the volume buttons for several seconds will contact emergency services without her needing to use the screen at all. Then it's as simple as telling them your location and that a crazy guy is after you, and you'll have armed reinforcements on the way. Even if the microphone or speaker doesn't work and Sienna isn't able to communicate with the dispatcher, they should still be able to locate where the call came from and send officers to the scene. Sienna had a clear shot when she snuck up behind Art in the tunnel and could have ended things right there and then, but for some reason she decided to hit him in the back and do almost no damage, instead of going straight for the head and not stopping until there was nothing left. Now, when they finally managed to put some distance between themselves and Art and had the chance to regroup, there's no reason why Sienna should have been the only one to grab a weapon. I would have wanted to give something to little Dweebus over here too, since it's always a good idea to use numbers to your advantage. He might not be much of a fighter, but he could make for a great distraction while Sienna goes in for the critical blows. Speaking of a distraction, if they really wanted to turn the tables on Art, this would have been the perfect time to use Jonathan as bait to lure him into a trap. The whole house looks like it's ready to burn down at a moment's notice, so if they could find something in the workshop where they got the metal pipe that would help them get the flames started, like a blowtorch or some flammable liquids, then they might be able to trick Art into chasing Jonathan into one of the small rooms that are all over the place, and then have Sienna ambush him, trap him inside, and roast the creep while they escape. As we've already seen several times, the most important thing with this guy is to confirm the kill. Just because he's got a metal spike through the brain doesn't mean that he won't be getting right back up as soon as you take your eyes off him. The only way to make sure that he isn't going to come back and take your eyes off of you is to really finish the job. Sienna goes to check on her brother, but before she can get a single word out, Art bursts up from behind her and throws her to the ground. Jonathan jumps on his back, trying to hold him off, and Art easily tosses him away, but in the scuffle, he manages to get a hold of the sawed-off shotgun strapped to his ankle and fires a blast directly into Art's chest. When she finally wakes up, Sienna realizes with horror that her brother and the clown are gone. She runs down the hallway and finds Art standing over him, rushing at the clown and punching him in the chest. But he takes the hits and grabs her by the neck, throwing her down a trapdoor into some kind of creepy basement below the building and spitting on her with all of the disrespect. Looking around, she sees a mysterious red door in the floor and hears voices calling out to her from the other side. She gets up to find her way out, but Art is standing right behind her and stabs her in the stomach with her father's sword before letting her fall into the void. Sienna wakes up in a Houdini-style water chamber and starts struggling desperately to get out with no luck. All around her are the dead people from her nightmare, and while they celebrate and sing their little jingle, she drowns, unable to set herself free in time. Okay, you have got to be kidding me. After getting so close to freedom, that's how you got out? I hate to say it, but Sienna, it looks like you f***ed up. So far, you've been skating on by nothing but dumb luck at every turn, but it looks like now your luck finally ran out. We should have known that you were doomed, even from all the way back during your first encounter with the clown and that nightmare you had. You remember, the one where you sat there paralyzed with fear until you got shot in the leg and only managed to survive by pulling a magical sword out of a cereal box? How about the costume store, where you were so terrified of a damn bicycle horn that you nearly passed out right on the spot? Art probably only let you go because he figured that you were so pathetic that he could kill you anytime, any place. And the poor cashier who was just trying to get through the day ended up having to pay the price. Jonathan here tried his best to warn you about what was coming, but even after everything that had already happened, you decided that the best thing to do would be to go to a Halloween party and get hammered with your friends. I hope it was fun, because while you were trying to drown your fears in alcohol, your mom got turned into ground beef, and now your little brother got kidnapped, which leads us to the predicament that we're in now. Instead of calling the police because you didn't want to get in trouble, or even bringing your friends to back you up, you chose to wander around an abandoned carnival on your own, in the middle of the night with no plan or way to defend yourself. And what do you know? The creepy clown who's been stalking you all day was there the whole time. Even your friends, who had nothing to do with any of this, got killed, and I bet their last thoughts were about how much they regretted ever letting you tag along in the first place. To top it all off, by my count, you and your brother had no less than 5 chances in the span of the last 15 minutes to take this freak out for good. But somehow, you blew it every single time. Now you're dead and trapped in some kind of clown dimension, where your brother has it even worse, left to suffer whatever twisted torture Art has planned for him. When you manage to mess up so badly that not even the plot armor can protect you anymore, Sienna, you have seriously f***ed up. Jonathan wakes up only to see that Art has started eating him alive. He screams for his sister's help, and suddenly her father's sword starts to glow with a magical red aura, healing her wounds and shocking her back to life. Finally, she reaches down and tears herself free, pulling herself back up to the land of the living. Sneaking up behind Art, she stabs him deep in the back with the sword, slicing into the side of his neck and slitting his throat. Realizing that he's finished, Art offers her a clean shot and she hacks his head right off of his shoulders. The clown is finally dead. The two kids hug it out, thinking that they're home free. That's when they see the pale girl watching them from the other side of the room, and she does not look happy. But the girl only grabs Art's head and takes it with her as she walks away down one of the dark tunnels. Okay, wait a minute. She's not seriously about to let that thing take Art's head and walk away, is she? After literally coming back from the dead to slay him, how is she just gonna stand there while his little friend takes what's left of him and goes off to probably resurrect him somewhere? Because you know that's exactly what's gonna happen, and the first 2 people he's gonna come after when he's back in his killing shape are, you guessed it, Sienna and Jonathan. She's got a magical sword that heals all wounds, so what the hell is she waiting for? If it were me, I would have wasted no time in hacking that little creep to pieces and burning the bodies for good measure. That night, at the county psychiatric hospital, Vicki, the horribly disfigured sole survivor of last year's massacre, starts writing disturbing and vulgar messages on the wall in her own blood, including the names Vicki and Art in a big heart at the center. When the nurse goes to do her rounds, she hears commotion coming from the women's room, and peeking in, she sees her there holding Art's head in her lap, as if she's just given birth to it, and eating the skin off of the side of his face. The head smiles and laughs as the woman's eyes turn a sickly yellow, just like the pale girl's. It looks like Art will be back for another slaughter after all. Listen up, meat shields, because it's time. The most demented clown who ever lived is back from the grave once again. And I'm here to tell you that his latest crime spree isn't as bad as you might have heard. it's worse. You know, our boy Art doesn't waste any time, so we won't either. Now, let's get right into some of the most gruesome kills that the world has ever seen, as we break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Art the Clown in Terrifier 3. It's a few nights before Christmas in a quiet suburban neighborhood, and I'm sure nothing terrible will happen here at all. The parents are sound asleep while their young daughter Jules walks in, saying that she heard someone up on the roof. Of course, her mom thinks that it's all in her head, but boy oh boy, is that about to be her biggest mistake. A little while later, Jules wakes up to more noises coming from somewhere inside the house, and sure enough, when she looks downstairs, there's Santa just kind of standing there in front of the tree. Something about Kris Kringle here seems a little bit off. So the girl takes cover behind a door, watching as Santa pulls an axe out of his bag and starts making his way upstairs. Next up are dear old mom and dad, and Jen here wakes up annoyed at the sound of some moist thwacking coming from the other side of the bed, but imagine her surprise when she looks over and sees old Artie Claus burying the hatchet in her husband's skull. Screaming, the woman runs for her life as our boy does a classic "Here's Artie" through the bedroom door, but she doesn't make it far before he axes her, what she wants for Christmas. Psycho Santa decks the halls with her blood as he brutally hacks off the woman's arm, before finally doing her in with a chop to the noggin. After a hard night's work, Art takes a break to enjoy some milk and cookies, and even cleans the dishes after he's done, and that makes 2 down with 14 more to go. Okay, well, I guess one thing's for sure. This family was definitely on Santa's naughty list. Now, if you know anything about Art the Clown, then it's pretty obvious that these folks were completely screwed as soon as he showed up. You can't just take Art down by regular means, because he has no problem surviving attacks that would stop a regular person. And even if you go for the head, he'll just resurrect and somehow come back again. He's strong enough to rip a human body apart with his bare hands, but most of the time he prefers to catch his victims by surprise, and carries around a big bag of weapons filled with axes, hammers, and flamethrowers, maybe even Tommy guns, so you never really know what he's going to bring to a fight. Now, with that being said, it is still possible to stop him for a while if you do enough damage. He's also still subject to the laws of physics, meaning that you can kick or shove him off balance, and use your surroundings to help you escape. Waking up in the middle of the night with this clown in your bedroom is going to be a terrifying situation to say the least. And that's why the best way to survive an encounter with Art is to avoid ever having an encounter with him in the first place. Now, her kid mentioned footsteps on the roof, and since it's the holiday season, you figure, okay, she's just thinking of Santa, but after seeing that your dumbass husband left the front door open all night, you might as well take a look around before immediately going back to bed. That probably wouldn't have saved them anyway, but at least they wouldn't have been caught sleeping in bed with time for Art to get a free kill. When she woke up to Art axing her husband, Jen here needed to let her survival instincts take over, and use his body as a meat shield by forcefully shoving him towards the clown, which should hopefully knock him off balance. We're gonna have to rely a lot on RNG during these battles, but there's a chance that Art might drop his weapon in this moment, and if that happens, then we're definitely picking that bad boy up to use against him. Side note, we have to remember that whenever somebody does a "Here's Johnny" moment, you have a free shot at their hands, face, and eyes. So use this opportunity to temporarily blind them. An extra second or two might have been all she needed to get out through the front door, but that would have still left Jules to worry about. Now, what Mom here didn't notice is that Art left his big bag of death right there underneath the Christmas tree. All that she had to do was reach in there, and she would have probably found some sort of devastating weapon that she could have used to fight back. Remember though, going for a kill shot is probably a waste of energy when incapacitating him works just as well. Instead, we can also focus on his arms and legs, because if he's too injured to chase after you or swing a weapon, then you can escape while he regenerates and live to see another day. If you think what happened to that family was bad, then trust me, you ain't seen shit. And now it's time for Art to terrorize the town once again. The film jumps back to 5 years earlier, where an unlucky officer comes across Art's headless body in the basement under the Terrifier ride. Dispatch says that backup is on the way, but it won't be soon enough, because the minute that this guy takes his eyes off of it, the body stands up and starts choking him out, even taking 2 bullets straight to the chest without flinching. That makes 3 down, with 13 more to go. Art staggers onto a subway car, holding the man's severed head in place of his own. The clown makes his way over to the psychiatric hospital, where the security guard hears a blood-curdling scream coming from Victoria's cell. You remember Vicki, right? The one who got her face eaten off by Art and then went all crazy on that reporter? Well, she just gave birth to Art's head. And now they're both chowing down on what's left of the unfortunate nurse who crossed their path. Cackling in the guard's face, the woman pins him up against the wall just as Art's headless body comes strolling in. And they both take turns using their bare hands to absolutely tear his face apart, all while baby Art is just over there smiling on the floor. That makes 4 down, with 12 more to go. Now that they're all reunited and it feels so good, they take the train back to the abandoned house where Art has his evil lair, even taking some pictures for an excited cosplayer before killing him off screen and stealing his hat and bicycle horn, making 5 down with 11 more to go. After repeating some not so positive affirmations in the mirror, Icky Vicki here decides to take a quick bath in a tub full of her own blood, while Art takes a load off in a rocking chair up in the attic. And both of them remain in those exact spots for the next 5 years. Back in the present day, our girl Sienna, the Art Slayer here, is just coming home from a long stay at the Grippy Socks Hotel. She's staying with her Uncle Greg and Aunt Jess and their young daughter Gabby, who looks up to Sienna as her cool older cousin. The girl's excited to show her the bedroom they set up with all of her favorite fantasy-themed decorations, but little do they know that the demons of Sienna's past are about to return. While they're having a family reunion, a pair of demolition workers pull up to Art's crib, totally clueless that this place is a trap in more ways than one. Jackson here decides to scare his buddy with a made-up story about a psychotic killer who used to live there, but they still need to clear the place before it gets knocked down. So Dennis heads upstairs while his partner checks out the first floor. Well, it isn't long before these two each find something strange, with Jackson noticing a flickering light that leads him to discover Vicky's body, and his partner crossing paths with a creepy clown upstairs in the attic. As they both lean in for a closer look, Art suddenly reaches out and grabs Dennis by the face, throwing him into a wall, while Vicky stabs his buddy in the neck with a shard of broken glass. Jackson gets the less painful death as this horrifying ghoul quickly finishes him off. But the guy in the attic is not so lucky. Forcing him down, Art uses a massive nail to pin his hand straight to the floor and then bites off 2 fingers from the other one like he's eating little piggies in a blanket. Whipping out the box cutter, he brutally slices open the man's scalp and tears the 2 halves apart until his entire face peels right off his skull, making 7 down, with 9 more to go. Okay, this right here is the definition of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. There must be a reason why Art chose to come back just when Sienna got out of the hospital, but it doesn't make much of a difference for these two. It's always a bad idea to split up, especially in a dangerous place like an abandoned building, and boy, did they underestimate just how dangerous it actually was. Maurice here in the bathroom never stood a chance. It looks like she cut some sort of artery, causing him to bleed out in just a matter of seconds, but as for his buddy upstairs, he actually might have had some options. When Art reached out to grab his face, that's when you quickly do a 180, hit him with a shoulder throw, and send him flying out the top floor window that was right behind them. This wouldn't kill him, of course, but it at least gives you a chance to get away. Now, when he chucked the guy into the bookshelf, all of that stuff that fell to the ground could have been used against him. Just take one of those big nails from the floor, and when he reaches down to grab you, shank him with it to buy another chance to escape. You'll still have to get past his creepy girlfriend blocking the exit, but if you pick up a chair and sprint straight into her, it should be enough to knock her down while you run for the door. The box cutter on his tool belt that Art eventually used to slice off his face could have also worked as a weapon if he had any survival instincts. But once he got pinned to the floor, it was basically all over. They might not have survived the fight, but there's something interesting I noticed here that could help us up in later battles. It seems like every time Art here gets reanimated, there's some kind of electrical anomaly that happens at the same time. When he was reborn as a baby head, back at the hospital, it was during a lightning storm. And here we saw the lights flickering, even though the building didn't have any power. Now, as a general rule, we know that supernatural entities like demons can influence and manipulate electromagnetic fields. What's most likely happening here is that these energy bursts are sort of like a demonic defibrillator that reanimates Art's dead body, allowing him to return from the underworld and go back on another crime spree. And if that is the case, then there might be a way that we could use this knowledge to stop him for good. What we need to do is stop Art from being affected by the electrical surge, and to do that, we need a Faraday cage. Now, we've talked about these before, but basically a Faraday cage is a box made out of conductive material like aluminum foil that blocks out electromagnetic fields. All that they have to do is go to the nearest grocery store and get every box of aluminum foil that they have on the shelf. Then, if they can take Art down again for a long enough period of time, like by decapitation, they need to wrap his head and body in a thick layer of foil. As long as they make sure that he's completely wrapped up with no gaps, there's a chance it could stop the demon's powers from being able to resurrect him. It's a long shot, but it couldn't hurt to try. Back at her aunt's house, Sienna here is just trying to get through a normal dinner with the fam, but she keeps having visions of her dead friend Brooke, who blames the girl for getting her killed. A lot like Jack from American Werewolf in London. The zombie keeps asking her to pass the rice, so our girl needs to excuse herself before she has a full-blown meltdown. But she's not the only one who's still dealing with the trauma of Art's last rampage. Her younger brother Jonathan here is in college now, and he keeps getting harassed by his roommate's girlfriend Mia, a true crime podcaster who has an unhealthy obsession with the Miles County Clown. Big Sis calls to check in, saying how she's looking forward to seeing him again over the holiday, but Gabby can tell that there's something on her mind. They decide to do some face painting to help her relax, but what they don't know is that Art is already working on a creative project of his own. Down in his evil lair, he puts together a device that shoots liquid nitrogen out of a tank and tests it out on a poor little rat, making 8 down with 8 more to go. Later that night, at a bar somewhere in town, a mall Santa is enjoying some attention from the ladies, but there's someone else who wants to sit on his lap. After spotting him through the window, Art comes barging in with his own bag full of toys, and starts acting all excited when Santa tells him to come on over. This guy is a true professional, so he refuses to break character even when Art yanks on his beard. The bartender makes the mistake of asking what's in the bag, and Art hears like, "I thought you'd never ask," pulling out his little bicycle horn and honking it in all of their faces. As the shenanigans continue, the bartender starts to get annoyed, and he asks Art if he can see some identification. Well, the clown shows him an ID that he stole from a construction worker, but Santa insists that it's good enough. A choice that he immediately regrets when Art spits the drink back in his face, and he starts going to the little clown's room right there in his lap. Now, even Santa here is ready to crash out, and the bartender starts telling him to get lost. But before they even know what's happening, Art pulls out the blicky and shoots the 2 men dead, leaving only him and Santa Claus to settle things between themselves. Terrified, the man begs for his life, desperately trying to appeal to Art's human side. But instead of letting him go, the clown strips him out of his costume and ties poor Santa here up to a chair. He's almost ready to spread some holiday fear, but there's one last thing that he needs to complete, the outfit, and that's Santa's signature white beard. Reaching into his bag, he takes out the liquid nitrogen sprayer and starts freezing the man's legs and arms, all while he screams in excruciating pain. With his body frozen solid, Art grabs a hammer and starts shattering pieces of this man's limbs apart like glass, only to grab the tank again and spray a blast straight through the man's head. Taking the hammer, he shatters half of the poor guy's skull while he's still alive, peeling the beard straight off of his face before finally sticking a big ol' carrot in place of his missing nose. And that makes 11 down with 5 more to go. Okay, I gotta give Santa props for keeping it professional, but you have to realize that something's wrong when the guy has blood all over his hands. Last time I checked, it's supposed to be Christmas, not Halloween. When Maurice Jackson over here showed the bartender a wallet that clearly wasn't his, that should have been the moment when he silently called the cops. Now, when Art pulls out the Glock, you know he's done playing around. At that moment, Santa needed to quickly roll across the bar and use it for cover. The other guy's name was Smokey, so you know he might have a lighter on him. If he takes a bottle of alcohol and a rag, he can make a Molotov cocktail to throw at Art's feet, and then get out of there while he goes up in flames. Once he had him tied to a chair, that's when things got a little more complicated. It looks like the rope was tied too tight for him to struggle loose, meaning that his only hope of survival was to topple over and break the chair itself. Art would try to interfere, but he could use a piece of the broken chair to fight him off, battling his way over to the bag of tricks to get a better weapon, and then focus on damaging him badly enough that it creates an opportunity to escape. Speaking of better weapons, Art might not realize it, but his new toy could actually be extremely effective if somebody used it against him. What he's using here is a tank filled with liquid nitrogen, an extremely cold, cryogenic liquid. When sprayed onto the human body, it freezes the tissues almost instantly, turning the water within the tissues into solid ice. This rapid freezing causes the ice crystals to form inside of the cells themselves, causing them to expand and rupture in a process known as cryonecrosis, making them extremely fragile, and turning the normally flexible tissue into something as brittle as glass. The thing is, liquid nitrogen creates temperatures that are so cold that all cellular activity comes to a total stop, meaning that Art won't be able to heal. It took him a little while to recover after being Leonardo decapitated, so you can only imagine how long it might take if we shatter him into a million pieces. Now, if we want to be extra safe, we can use those pieces and store them in a cryogenic chamber, and hopefully never have to deal with Art again. Talking to his wife, Uncle Greg mentions how he doesn't like Gabby spending so much time with her big cousin. He's worried that the girl could be dangerous if her visions start to come back, but her aunt still refuses to give up on her. Meanwhile, Sienna here is up writing in her diary, where she finds a letter that Jonathan sent her after their battle with Art. In it, he explains how the evil clown gets his supernatural abilities by acting as a servant for a demonic spirit, but Sienna is the good counterpart with the power to defeat him. It's sort of like a Harry Potter against Voldemort type situation, and their only hope to stop it is to slay the demon's vessel before it's too late. The next day, Sienna and Gable head down to the mall to do some Christmas shopping. They're checking out the stores, trying to find something for Uncle Greg, when Sienna hears a horrifyingly familiar jingle come over the speakers. It's America's favorite hit record, The Clown Cafe, and as she looks towards the entrance, she sees her old friend in his new costume playfully waving hello. Petrified, all she can do is stand there silently crying until Gabby finally snaps her out of it. There's no way to be sure that it was him just yet, but it wasn't long before they get their proof. After finishing up at the mall, Sienna goes to visit her brother Jonathan at school. She wants him to come over to their aunt's place a few nights early, but J-Man turns her down, saying how he's already going to a party later that night. That's when Jonathan's roommate and his art-obsessed girlfriend show up, and the girl immediately starts fanning out when she recognizes her favorite celebrity. Before she can even say a word, the girl starts going off about how she needs to sit down for an interview. But Sienna here is having none of that and quickly puts Mia in her place for being so inconsiderate. Storming off, she finally decides to tell her brother that Art is back, but he's not sure if he wants to believe it. He'd rather try and move on with their lives, but she has to remind him about the letters he wrote when he was still taking things seriously. She knows that his research matches up exactly with everything that's been happening, and correctly guesses that the demonic spirit must be using Victoria as its new vessel. They can't run, they can't hide, and there's no one they can call for help, which means that their only choice left is to fight. But there is one thing that they still have going for them that Art doesn't know about: Sienna's magical sword that's buried underneath the Terrifier ride. Our girl leaves to get the weapon before it's too late, warning her brother to be extra careful in case the clown comes for them first. Okay, Sienna is in a tough spot here because it's hard to get people to believe that Art's back when she can't even believe it herself. But if she was thinking clearly, back at the mall, there was a way that she could have proven it right there on the spot. She couldn't see his face, but she could see that his hands were covered in blood, and that's good enough reason to call security if you ask me. All she had to do was point him out to a security officer and watch from a safe distance to see what happened next. If he pulled out some kind of Looney Tunes weapon and attacked him with it, then she'd know that Art was back on the loose and could warn her family without coming off as crazy. Splitting up from Jonathan is the worst idea yet, because this is definitely not the kind of situation where you can be half in or half out. Now, I'm pretty sure that Art cannot teleport through walls, although we have seen him invade Sienna's dreams once upon a time, Freddy Krueger style. Since there's no way to be sure what the limits are, it's better to be safe than sorry, and go around the house making sure to lock all the doors and windows. That probably won't stop him for long, but at least that way you'll have a heads up that he's coming. By gathering everyone up and being prepared for the attack, they're evening the odds as much as anyone possibly can in a battle against two demonic clowns. Then all that's left to use is her magical sword to kick their asses. It's not going to be easy, but she's going to have to fight them again sooner or later, so they might as well get ready instead of trying to pretend like it isn't true. Back at his dorm, Jonathan here starts absolutely freaking out, convinced that his sister must be going crazy, and now maybe he is as well. As for Sienna, she comes back to the house with the sword in a gift-wrapped box, hiding it behind the tree when Gabby almost catches her. The girl notices that her hands are dirty, but she lies about how she fell down on the way home, and quickly heads up to the bathroom to get cleaned up. What she doesn't realize is that Art just showed up at the Beta House Christmas Bash, the same party where her brother is supposed to be going. But there's another unsuspecting victim who he decides to visit first. Before the party, Jonathan's roommate Cole tries calling to see if he's still coming out tonight, but now the kid is not picking up the phone. His girlfriend clearly didn't get the message when Sienna let her have it, and she's still hell-bent on trying to get J-Men on her podcast. But they have no idea that her real dream guest is already in the house. That's right, the Miles County Clown himself is standing right outside their door, and he eavesdrops in while Mia here imagines what it would be like to meet him face to face. Well, she won't have to imagine for very long, because Art can tell that these two are about to get it on, and he just decided to make all of her up dreams come true. Back at the house, the girls are playing some board games when they notice something on TV. It's a news report about the explosion at the mall, and when an eyewitness claims he saw a weird guy in a Santa costume at the scene of the crime, Sienna knows that only one maniacal mime could be responsible. Our girl starts to panic, finally admitting that the clown is back as she desperately tries to warn them that they're all in danger. Even the parents still aren't sure if they actually believe her, but she insists on calling Jonathan right now. And even though she can barely explain what's going on, he promises to get there as soon as he can. After Sienna finally calms down, Aunt Jess gives her something to help her sleep, convinced that it's all in her niece's mind. They're starting to regret even letting her stay there, but Uncle Greg still heads out to pick up her brother, never suspecting that it's the last time they'll ever see each other alive. Meanwhile, Art follows the roommate over to the showers, where he and his girlfriend start to get down and dirty, before pulling out a chainsaw from his big bag of toys. But if you think you know what's about to happen next, just wait. Their only warning is the sound of the chainsaw starting before Art blasts right through the glass and gives Cole here the old Ethan Winters hand surgery. He's actually able to put up a decent fight, but it doesn't last long before he completely loses a couple fingers. And Art slices off one of his legs as he tries to hobble away. While her man is bleeding out on the floor, Mia finally gets that face-to-face encounter that she always dreamed of as Art cuts open her chest, slices her stomach, and then just starts tearing apart her face in one of the most brutal attacks that you've ever seen on film. While she's still alive, he leans in and gives her his holiday glasses before finally finishing her off. But he's not done yet. Cole here is still struggling on the floor, and after tearing his other leg off, Art takes that chainsaw and puts it right up to his tailpipe, cutting him almost completely in half. While their bodies lie steaming on the floor, Art lies down to make a snow angel with their blood and guts. That makes 13 down, with 3 more to go. Okay, well damn, I guess it's true when they say don't meet your heroes, especially when that hero is actually a bloodthirsty demonic clown. These two didn't really do anything to get Art's attention here, he just happened to be walking by and decided that he had time for another kill. When you're in the shower and you hear a chainsaw revving up, it might be time to take some action. I don't know. That's just me. Now, Art was really working with a heavy advantage here. He literally caught them with their pants down and had them cornered in a tightly confined space with nowhere to run or take cover, making it almost impossible to fight back. On top of that, he's using an absolutely horrifying weapon that's going to be deadly if he lands a single hit. As for these two, they had nothing but their bare hands and each other to use as meat shields. That's why the first thing you need to do is get out of the shower and into the larger area where you have more room to work with. There wasn't much that the roommate could have done besides try to dodge the attack, but while he was struggling for the chainsaw, Mia had a few options for what she might have done instead. He was only working with one hand at that point, so she could have at least tried to help wrestle the chainsaw away from Art, or she could have shoved her boyfriend forward, using his body to knock Art off balance and creating a chance for her to escape. Now, once they're successfully out of the shower, the next step is to escape in the direction that makes the most sense, either through the exit that's straight to their left or into the next room if they have to run. If they did run into the next room, they'd find Art's bag of tricks around the corner, and it's never a bad idea to reach in there and grab a random weapon from the goodie bag. Actually, for most of these attacks, Art keeps showing up with the perfect weapon to fight him with if you were able to get your hands on it. So besides just trying to get away, knocking the chainsaw out of his hands is always a perfectly viable option. Then they can use it to take off his head or limbs, and he'll have to spend some time recovering before he can come after them again. Sometime in the middle of the night, Gabby wakes up to a strange noise coming from somewhere in the house, and she can't resist the urge to go and check it out. Meanwhile, her father arrives at the dorms to pick up Jonathan, but when he tries calling him, the kid is acting strange. And what he doesn't realize is that it's actually the demon on the other end of the phone. In a dream, Sienna relives the memory of the day when her dad first drew her as an angel warrior, ready to fight the forces of evil with her badass flaming sword. The girl loved it, but when she tried to take the picture, her father's face turned red as he held onto it with an iron grip, able to see the horrifying battles that she'd eventually have to endure. Now an adult, she finds herself standing in the middle of a hellish forge, where she witnesses a statue of Mary forcing a demonic blacksmith to craft her armor and sword, before finally waking up back in her own bed. It's just before 2 in the morning and she can hear the parents arguing about her downstairs. Staying quiet, she sneaks down as the voices start growing louder, saying that they should kill her while they have the chance. But it's already too late by the time she realizes what's actually going on. Turning into the kitchen, she's horrified to discover Victoria standing at the oven, while Art's busy nailing the roommate's headless body up to the wall. Panicking, she immediately rushes back to the stairs, but Art quickly catches up and drags her back down. She manages to kick him off, but he picks up the girl and chucks her through the coffee table. And while she's desperately reaching for the sword, he bashes her over the head with his mallet, knocking her out cold. When Sienna wakes up, she finds out that she's been tied to a chair with duct tape covering her mouth. Her Aunt Jess is in the same position on the other side of the room, and there's a scary bloody object placed on the table in between them, making it clear that the clowns have something truly terrible in store. Art gives our girl a playful smack on the head as he walks over to hang some of the roommate's guts up on the tree. And when she looks up, she sees Uncle Greg's severed head placed on top with the star sticking out of his skull. Standing up, Vicki warns Aunt Jess not to scream as she rips the duct tape covering her mouth. There's still one more family member missing, but that's when Art opens the present in the middle of the room, revealing a human skull in a cage, with all the flesh eaten off by the demon's pet rats. Now that they've given her a present, the ghoul says that she wants one back, and the woman hawk-tuas straight into her empty eye socket as the final statement of resistance, knowing that she's done for. That's when Art grabs a thick glass tube, brutally hammering it straight down the woman's throat just after she begs Sienna to avenge her family. There's nothing that Sienna can do but watch as they take the rats and place them into the tube. heating up one end with a blowtorch so that they'll be forced to go inside the woman's body, and letting them eat her alive before finally slitting her throat as the rats all come falling out of her neck. But Sienna still has one more last move up her sleeve. Okay, talk about the worst Christmas ever. I guess Aunt Jess and Uncle Greg should have kept their distance after all. Then they'd be opening presents in the morning without the slightest idea that these crimes against humanity were even possible. But just like always, you and your demonic stalker clowns just had to ruin it for everybody. I've got some bad news, Sienna. I just got off the phone with the North Pole and Santa says that you f***ed up. Now, I had a feeling that we were all doomed right when you let poor little defenseless Jonathan over here stay at school all alone when you knew that Art was out to get him. You were serious enough about his safety to go dig up a magical sword from the place where you survived falling down a portal to hell. So, are we really taking any chances here? Just tell that little twerp that the party's canceled before it ends up turning into his own funeral. Then, later that night, when you're absolutely positive that Art is indeed back, you think the best thing to do is to have everybody split up while you intentionally put yourself into a deep sleep? I'm sorry, but what the f***? Is now really the best time for a power nap? You left everyone in the house totally defenseless when you were the only one with enough experience to know how much danger they were really in. And to top it all off, you left the one weapon powerful enough to defeat them in a box underneath the Christmas tree. What was even the point of that? It's not like carrying a gift-wrapped box up to your room around the holidays is suspicious, and if you ask me, I think it's a much worse idea to leave it somewhere out of reach. All that it did was create an opportunity for Art to get to it first, and you're lucky that it didn't happen, otherwise you'd be completely screwed. I would have had that thing on me at all times and been pounding caffeine until the clown was dead for real this time. But since you didn't trust your instincts, it ended up getting everyone you love killed. And there's only one thing left to say when that kind of stuff happens around here, and it's sorry Sienna, but it looks like you f***ed up. With her aunt dead, Vicki goes over to Sienna and painfully forces a crown of thorns onto her head. They're trying to cause her so much suffering that she'll break down, allowing the demon to possess her body instead. And they're going to do it by brutally killing everyone that she loves. That's when they reveal that Gabby is still alive, and Sienna offers to give up if they'll let the girl go, but Vicki here isn't looking to negotiate. As for the skull, Art picks it up and puts it above the fireplace wearing her brother's glasses, hitting her with the final reveal that they got Jonathan after all, and the demon starts trying to possess Sienna in her moment of weakness, but somehow she's able to resist. Frustrated, the clowns turn on the only person who she has left, but that's when Gabby apologizes for not giving Sienna her present. Thinking that it's funny, they decide to let the girls have one last Christmas moment, and she points to the long box behind the tree. But this right here was the clown's biggest mistake. Mocking her, the clown tosses the box at Sienna's feet, telling the girl to open it herself. But of course, there's a twist, and Art comes over with a big-ass hammer, brutally smashing both of her hands into a pulp while she's still tied up. When they finally let her go, she keeps struggling to get it open even though her hands are mangled beyond belief. All while Art's still taking cheap shots at her the whole time. Until finally she opens the box and reaches inside. All of a sudden, Sienna pulls out the sword and slashes Art's throat, before cutting herself free and flinging it like a spear straight through old One-Eye's chest. While the demon's spazzing out, she pulls the sword out, sticking it straight through her mouth, finally killing her off with a classic decapitation. And that makes all 16 down, but the girls are still far from safe. Sienna asks Gabby how she knew what was in the box, and the girl admits that it's because she always opens her presents early. Their heartfelt moment is literally cut short when Artie Claus comes charging in with the chainsaw, but now Sienna is able to hold him back thanks to her trusty magic sword. Actually, Sienna starts whooping his ass right there for a minute, battling him into the kitchen until she almost makes the same mistake that got Tara killed back in Terrifier 1. But this time it only costs her a chainsaw slash to the stomach, and it's going to take a lot more than that to stop her now. Even after she loses her sword, she just starts giving Art the hands and slamming him onto the countertops. But this clown is no joke. He almost gets her by forcing her head onto the chainsaw, but it turns out grabbing Art by the balls actually works, and as the battle spills over into the next room, Art's chainsaw gets stuck in the dining room table, so he starts choking her out with the dead guy's small intestine instead. Her only choice is to go truly beast mode mode, forcing her to bite straight through that shit in a savage move that even Art the Clown takes by surprise. But even as he turns around to keep the fight going, our girl finally gets him right in the chest, pinning him back against the wall. Just when it looks like she has things under control, Art gives her an evil grin as the demon's blood melts straight through the floor, causing her cousin to fall into the pit. Forced to make a choice, Sienna rushes over to save her, grabbing the blade of the sword as she reaches for the handle. But she can't hold on, and both the sword and her cousin end up dropping into the portal. When she looks up, she realizes that Art is gone as well, escaping through the window into the cold, snowy night. Pulling the crown off of her head, she notices the wounds on her hands begin to rapidly heal, and vows to rescue Gabby no matter what it takes. As for Art, he's just sitting at the bus stop, waiting for the next unlucky public transport to come along. There's a woman on board reading a horror book called The Ninth Circle, but the bus driver says that he likes romantic comedies better than all that gory stuff. Well, buddy, it looks like you're in the wrong genre, because that's when Art gets on and takes a seat directly across from the nice lady, staring at her with his blank, demonic expression. Pulling out his horn, he gives everyone a honk and a big old smile. But we'll have to wait until next time to find out if Sienna ever gets her revenge. Terrifier 3. It's like Terrifier 2. Really enjoyed this one from Damon Leone and gang. I can't believe they pulled it off so close to the Joker 2 release and got more money in the theater than Joker 2. I mean, it's just, you know, clown gang, clowns rule. Where all my juggalos at? But seriously, guys, let me know down in the comments if you would have done anything differently. Don't forget to check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. I'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.